expected. There are tough negotiations on the future relationship with the EU also lying ahead. Our correspondent Gavin is in the Belgian Port of Antwerp as part of our special coverage today, having a look at the future of UK-EU trade. Gavin.
It'd be fascinating, actually, if Theresa May decided to step over and come across to this side of the channel and get a sense of what business is and what others were saying here, particularly on trade. I think anxiety is the crutch word here because of the amount of trade. We're talking about £40 billion, just over 40 billion euros when it comes to trade, import, export between Belgium, where I am, and Antwerp, and the UK. Holland, about 60 billion euros back and forth. The French, a similar amount as well. Suddenly, the concern is if there are tariffs, because after decades of being in the single market, the customs union, we see, the cars, Nissan cars, for example, here in Antwerp, waiting here to go over to the UK. Supermarkets at the drop of the hat, if they want food produce, something waiting, clothing that's usually waiting in these big containers over here behind me, then they can be there the next day. And just to guide you here, we have the waters coming through here towards the north, towards Holland, and just on this side is towards La Manche, or the Channel, the traffic going back and forth towards the UK. But let me bring in somebody who can give a good sense of what will happen in a year's time. We have Karel Lannoo. Karel is from the Centre for European Policy Studies based in Brussels. Talking trade, customs, what do you think the big factors are looking ahead towards Brexit?
The big issue is that we need to maintain the cooperation which we have, meaning the integration between both markets to the extent we can. And I think, let's say, that's the willingness on both sides. The problem is, however, like as you're standing here in the port, is that we won't have most likely customs union. So, meaning there may be a zero tariff, as the leaders last week agreed in Brussels. But even then, if you have no tariffs, we will have to control what comes in. So today there is a lot of trade between this port, between Rotterdam's port and the UK. There is a lot of trade from the UK to these ports. But there is no customs control. There is no need for customs control. Even if we have no tariffs, there will have to be a customs control in 2.5 years on. And that may be a big kind of hassle, a big new thing to cope with for many of the enterprises, may lengthen procedures, may lengthen trades. And imagine, for example, food. If the food stuff doesn't arrive in time, it may get, rotten. So that's why we need to work on that. And apparently the ports in Antwerp and Rotterdam, as I read also follow the Dutch media on this, they're not prepared.
No, and that's one thing we found this morning from talking to the chief executive of the Chamber of Commerce, from other companies, saying we haven't got a sense of customs. Now, you mentioned the fact that European leaders talk about the idea that there is some kind of trade deal that would work so there aren't tariffs involved. We don't know how that will work. But if even that was the case, and you picked up on a very good point there, we're seeing stocks, we're seeing produce freely passing back and forth, but if suddenly there needs to be something to vouch for livestock, for traffic, for food produce coming in. Yeah. Is it technology? Is it? I know some companies, the Dutch, are looking at digital technology apps. Is that a workable solution?
Yes, of course. Okay, they can do everything if they want, if at least the willingness is there. But you never know. Let's say there are some political disagreements on both sides, and for that reason, a trade is stuck in the port. And that they will not treat us because, but this food stuff has been treated differently than what is the custom in the EU. And then the food stuff is laying there, and if you have more and more of these cases, trade will go down.
Very briefly, are you an optimist or a pessimist when it comes to the impact and the prospects of Brexit over the next few years?
No, I was a pessimist, more of a pessimist, I would say a year ago. I think I see it going in a good direction. My concern is that the EU has been on the demanding side all the time, and we feel in Brussels, I think, let's say in the rest of Europe, that the UK doesn't really know where it wants to go. And that is the big problem. Meaning, even this issue which is in the summit from last week, zero tariff for goods, that's already a big step forward. That there is a clear indication to all goods traders there will be zero tariff. But on top of that, let's say, if we don't know, let's say, yet whether there be a customs union, it would be very good if there were to be a customs union on top of that. That would, take away all insecurity which we have for the moment. Certainly for ports traders like in this place.
Karel Lannoo, thank you.
Thanks.
Fascinating. It technically is. Today, a year to go, coming up to a historic moment. There will be this space, the transition period, the integration period, the Brits call it, up until the end of 2020. But some key factors here.
Gavin, thank you very much indeed. Tempus fugit, doesn't it, with Brexit?